Hi everyone, and welcome to my chats with dads, where I speak to busy dads who are running or leading in business about how they manage their energy and their health whilst they're spinning so many plates. If you're watching live or you've got any questions, please pop them in and we'll address those as we go. Or just want to say hi, then that's good. And any comments that are left after the live, we can get back to them later. And I'm delighted today to welcome Jason Ratcliffe along. So if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Ratcliffe. I am more importantly, I'm a dad of two, one 11-year-old and one 8-year-old, and still happily married for all my sins. So I am the wellbeing surveyor, and I also am a director at Atlantic Edge Property Group. I'm also the TEDx Truro organizer. So a few hats, but my main focus is making sure that people are aware of the environments that they live and work in, and make sure that they are safe as possible for those people that are either families or people that are in the business and in teams, to make sure that they are as safe as possible.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And that's a lot of hats and a lot of spinning plates. And I remember I kind of reached out to you because I was intrigued, because I used to work in the student accommodation game. So manage big buildings full of people, and I was fascinated by what the work that you do with that sort of building well-being kind of piece. So it was interesting to kind of connect with you and talk about that stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've obviously chatted a little bit before this, and it's fascinating. And I think, it's exactly right. I think I came from a surveyor background, and after kind of traveling the country and seeing all sorts of houses, HMOs or house of multiple occupancy, student accommodation, all this stuff, it was always the same thing. It was people's health seemed to be in a loose term, I suppose, affected in the same kind of ways from the same kind of issues within their home environments. So, mold growth, for example, respiratory issues, that sort of stuff. And there was no real connection as to why, and they'd always have the same story. They would go to the doctors or have seek medical assistance or go to their landlords, whatever it may be, and they would never get it resolved properly. So that's kind of when I had this idea of putting together the wellbeing surveyor, and actually then having giving free and affordable advice to anyone, basically, whether you're a tenant all the way through to you're knocking your house down and building a brand new one. And that just led me down a really interesting path to kind of say, look, before you go down the route of, getting medication and drugs and things like that, actually look at the environment you're in and see whether small changes or big changes within your home actually can be that preventative measure that you and your family need, rather than going on asthma pumps and all these other things. Not saying it's a full cure, but at least kind of look at it first.
Yeah, no, I find it fascinating because obviously I work with people to help improve their health. So I talk about environment, but when I'm talking about environment, I'm kind of meaning that the people that they're hanging out with, the places that they're spending their time in, how they set up their kitchen, how they do their food shops and things like that. But actually, our environment has quite a big impact on us. So if you think about things like sleeping, for example, is the room the right temperature? Is it quiet? Is it dark? What's the ambience like around that space? And I think it's quite a fascinating thing to look at.
Well, our circadian rhythm is so sensitive to anything, and our kind of deep sleep and routines, and even kind of, night shift work is really important if you're not getting that sleep, although it's in the day. If you've got noise pollutions and even a boiler next door to you that may be rattling, or your next door neighbor's washing machine. We've all experienced it at some point in our life. So, these things eventually can cause quite a bit of an offset to our natural rhythm in life. And then you just never quite feel rejuvenated. You never feel, I feel replenished. I can bounce out of bed and I can, go about my day. And I think that is massively to do with where we live and how we live, especially post-COVID, where a lot of people are either hybrid working at home or they're working at home fully. Our time at home has gone up to between 80 to 90% of the time. I mean, that's crazy. And, to think that you're just in that environment And what once was a sitting room or a bedroom that was a place to, replenish and unwind is now also your office. So actually you're always, even if you don't think about it, your subconscious is always thinking, oh, should I be doing that? Should I be? And you're never fully rested. So there's all these new problems that people don't really understand.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely huge. Yeah, I was just thinking back as well. So I had a job where I did night shifts, and I remember I was living in a ground floor flat, and our bedroom was next to the main entrance to the flat. And I never had. Now I use a sleep mask and a little earplug if I need to, depending on what time I'm going to bed. Back then I never did. I used to struggle through and constantly getting waken up. And it wasn't until later when I started researching, the thing that I want to do in terms of looking at nutrition and health and how you get that balance in life, that I realized how very important your sleep patterns are and how that consistency is really
absolutely
key. And so if you've got an environment that is not conducive to that, to giving you that quality of sleep, you're in trouble. It affects so much of the rest of your day. In terms
this is why, Paul, I think, people need, employers need to be investing in this way more than they are, because you're going to have a staff force of just, constantly off sick, or, their kids potentially off sick from school, so they have to stay at home, or just sluggish and not energized to come into work. It has a huge impact on business operations as well. So, having this kind of, and the ethical side of stuff from universities and colleges as well, they may not provide HMOs or living accommodation, but they have that obligation to actually say, well, here's some advice. Here's some free advice to look for, when you're looking for your accommodation. And I think that is massively lacking at the minute in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, it's just to finish on this sort of point. I was working with a large student accommodation provider recently, and we were looking at how nutrition and habits affect, energy and focus for students. And actually, one of the things they asked me to look at when we were talking to the students was how they sleep, how the building is in terms of their sleep and recovery, because I keep banging on about in all of my content about how important sleep is to any of your health goals. So it's nice to kind of hear that some of those providers are actually thinking, okay, we need to think a little bit differently about this. We're not just providing a safe, secure place for them to be and to study, but also they need to be able to sleep well, they need to be able to eat well,
Exactly.
they need to have that access to the things that they need in the local environment as well. So it's good news that there are people sort of looking at it. I know it's a hard business to make waves in and have an influence in as well in the property world.
It is. So I think the big backlash I have lately, because I'm very, as you know, in my socials, I'm very vocal about this thing. I like to think I'm kind of one of those annoying advocates that are just going, I'm not going away until something's done. So, having, I think contractors or people that are necessarily, that I'm not kind of, universally blaming contractors here, but I'm saying that people that tend to be the issue, such as those types of contractors or those types of landlords or organizations, are the ones that come out the woodwork and are very verbally obvious that they don't want change. And it needs to change. And I think that's even down to going into universities, even down all the way down to primary school. If you go into a classroom and it's hot and stuffy and, you're in there for 2-3 hours, whatever it may be, your learning curve is going to decline so, drastically. So I think it doesn't even have to be in work or living environment, in educational environments as well. But again, it's that thing of going, oh, well, we don't have any funding. Well, you don't need a lot of money to put these changes in place. I mean, you can do little things to make a huge impact. And I think that, again, is another sector that needs to really pick up the pace.
Yeah. So to your sort of setup then, I'm sort of intrigued, because obviously these conversations are generally to talk to dads about how they're managing their own sort of health and energy levels. Yeah. And like from where you're coming from in terms of what you do professionally, was there something that sort of happened in your life that made you start to focus more on that kind of work, and that's where you've got into that line of work? And what's the sort of backstory?
Yeah, so I've got kind of the lungs of a very sensitive sort of the most sensitive type of lungs. So if I'm in a room with any kind of excessive dust, any poor ventilation, any mold growth, yeah, it doesn't take me very long before, without any masks on or anything, to really kind of start feeling it. So it was that kind of question as to leading from my estate agency background of kind of, starting getting interested in people moving, especially moving to Cornwall, as to kind of, well, why would you choose such a coastal location? And a lot of people were saying about health benefits. And then it was that kind of, I suppose, that inquisitive side of me where I was just curious that why wasn't this being fixed? I was going into these homes. I was even going into, ambulance first responders, doctors, nurses' homes, and none of them seem to grasp the medical link between where they live and what it's doing to them and their family. I mean, literally, there were people with mold growth, damp, and then an inhaler in the kitchen, and that was someone from the medical sector. And you kind of ask them, and it was that kind of, well, why is it happening? But also, having my children as young as they are, I wanted to dig into as to how can I protect and educate them, so that hopefully, you obviously you can't bubble wrap them, but hopefully that they can progress and be as kind of healthy as possible.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think that's a lot of what I do in terms of when I'm working with dads, especially, is to try and, I think we should be leading the way a little bit and leading by example, and trying to lead, in a health positive manner, so that you are 100%. Impressing on those youngsters how to look after yourself, how to thrive. And obviously teach. There's a lot to teach youngsters, obviously, especially in this modern world they're entering into. It's bloody terrifying, to be honest.
It is.
But around your health, it's kind of getting back to those basics, isn't it? And having that basic understanding of the environment around you and how you interact with it.
And I think the thing is, as well, is, this massive disbalance. I mean, we won't obviously go into it too much, but, with kind of the NHS and then private sector, where there's such a strain on the NHS, and then people are then being pushed into the private sector. But then obviously the private sector is proactively trying to, do things like give you drugs, give you medication, because they get paid for that, even on, so it's that kind of, it is so important that you understand that that's not the only option. I'm not saying, don't ever go to the doctors. That's not what I'm saying. But, don't kind of make that your first point of call if you're having sleep issues, depression, anxiety, your immune system is knackered, anything like that. So it's kind of drilling that into my children as well, kind of going, look, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. So it's then just going to be smart with the way you, I suppose, investigate, analyze, and go forward with, I suppose, health investigation and remedies, because, some of this stuff can be worse actually trying to get treatment than the original cause of it. So, that's kind of, that was where I was coming from.
Yeah, and it's an important point to raise as well there, I think, because, like you said, the sort of corporate element to the world and how it's run is set up as it's a money machine, essentially. So a lot, and also our poor doctors actually don't have much time to even consult with you. So often it's reaching for a bit of paper and prescribing something, which keeps them afloat, but also gets someone out of their room so they can see the next person, because there's a never-ending list of people to see. So I think, one of the key messages I like to get across is that actually we can take care of ourselves first if we just strip back a little bit to basics and look at what we're feeding ourselves in terms of our food, how we're looking after ourselves in terms of moving our body and resting our body properly. And that actually, rather than sort of masking big issues with the sticking plaster of medicines, is to sort of face facts a little bit, maybe get a bit uncomfortable and make some changes that are actually going to benefit you for the now and for the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the issue with that as well is, obviously, when we're transferring from, I suppose, our known comfort zone to a better pathway, your body and your mind almost has that tantrum moment where it's like, no, this isn't good for you. What are you doing? So it's understanding that is a natural process to actually get to, a healthier way of living, I suppose. And
Yeah.
it's the same principle with, your home environment, like swapping out, incense and candles and fragrances and bleaches and stuff. There are other kind of, not all natural, but the majority are natural, unharmful or less harmful ways. But, then it's that kind of mindset and habit of then getting into that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a lot of it. That's a lot of the work I do is trying to identify those patterns and behaviors that are just fully developed and ingrained,
Yeah.
and that may not be necessarily that helpful. Then figuring out, well, what can I do instead? Trying to make that as painless and as simple as possible to implement some change. And then it's consistency and discipline and keeping on doing that new thing until it becomes the new normal.
Exactly. And I think that's so important with like the tenant and landlord debate as well, because obviously, everything is it's easier to prove that a landlord's at fault than disprove or prove that a tenant's at fault, I suppose, when you're going through kind of the claim system. So it's then kind of going in and saying, well, actually, if tenants are at fault, I don't know whether it's negligence, whether it's, having a massive fish tank with no ventilation, whatever it may be. It's then kind of saying, okay, well, rather than playing the blame game and then just continually going through this cycle, which costs a lot of money and is very stressful for everyone involved, it's like, well, how can we then educate tenants to behave better, to improve their situation themselves, so that it's not always kicked back to, is it the landlord, is it the tenant, because a lot of those issues can then be completely mitigated if there was healthier, I suppose, behavioral patterns for occupants in the first place. So again, it's just changing habits, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So kind of going back around full circle to you then, is there, in your last few years and in making those changes and growing that bit, developing that business whilst obviously raising a family, are there sort of conscious things that you've had to look at in yourself and your own routines that you've
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, anyone would tell you, including my wife, that I work too much. I think that the passion there overrides any kind of common sense sometimes, and I think you can get so enwrapped in just because it's exciting and you're helping people and it's kind of going great, this work is actually doing something, and then you get lost in that. So I about a year and a half ago, something like that, I ended up having a series of health issues. It started with burnout, as normally these things happen, and then it went on to a pretty aggressive infection that basically the doctors were saying, well, it's this last bit of antibiotics doesn't work. That's kind of it, really. So it's quite a scary time. And then that went on to, I had a slipped disc in my back, which then I had to have an operation for. And stupidly, I was at the time, I suppose, naively thinking, I'm invincible, I can do all this stuff. And I ignored kind of the rest side of things, just carried on going and pushing myself further. And then it led to me having a brain hemorrhage, or minor stroke. Which so it's pretty serious stuff. And then that really kind of was the turning point for me, I think. And it really then made me reflect on what I was doing in my life, how I was doing it. So although, I still have that, I suppose, almost uncontrollable ambition that I need to keep in check. I think that was definitely the turning point or the tipping point for me, where I was kind of going, well, I want to be here for a very long time. I want to be here for my kids, my family, and I want to enjoy the time with them as well. So it's then saying, well, what's the middle ground here? So trying to have more kind of time off. Diary management is a big one, because then I can consciously kind of flick from one project to another or one task to another, and then when that time is finished and something else comes up, like school, I don't know, whatever it may be, taking the kids out for an ice cream, for example, after school. It's like that is an allocated time for that. So I'm kind of then going, okay, let's switch everything else off. And I think that works for me, but I still, it's a daily occurrence where I have to check in and make sure that I am actually keeping to that and to myself.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is when you've got that sort of mission-led role and you're really passionate about it, it's hard to switch it on and off. And I think you have to have that intentional, deliberate way of managing the time. Otherwise, you will just be consumed by it.
Yeah, I think as well, if there wasn't, I suppose if there was more people doing what I'm doing, I wouldn't necessarily feel so strongly about having to do as much as I'm doing. But I think because I'm trying to start this movement, or start the exposure of this stuff, and then hopefully can then train up other professionals and get other professionals interested that's in the sector to do what I'm doing, so I'm not the only one shouting about it. I think if that wasn't the case, I don't think I would be quite as disbalanced, I suppose, with my ambition.
Yeah. And so you've taken a lot of time in terms of looking at, how you schedule things, and putting in time and blocking time out for yourself.
Yeah.
So did it, I'm intrigued, obviously, when you were trying to come back from that situation in terms of, having the stroke and having that sort of period of time, what else were you looking at in terms of trying to get yourself back on an even keel?
My health was a big one, obviously physical and mental health, in the sense of one of my core, I suppose, things to keep me functioning is a regular, I suppose, physical activity, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's, doing some kind of sport. But normally I'm a little bit off kilt at the minute, but normally kind of, solid repeat kind of gym days, things like that, which then, ways that you can physically exert that toxic stress out of your life. And I think it was really difficult around that time because I wasn't able to do that. So I was deregulated, and there was no way. So, falling more into, I suppose, alcohol consumption and stuff like that is not, it's not a great kind of fix, but that was kind of that point in my life. And it was like, I'm not okay with this. So I think I was just very much putting a lot of time into, taking small steps. Literally after my back up, it was like, I've got a bit of a courtyard in the front of my house. So it's kind of going, right, let's do one lap of that and then go and have a break, then another lap of that. And then just before you know it, then you're kind of regularly doing more and more and building up that pace. But then after that, it was this, I suppose, underlying fear of, when I went back into the gym and I was doing kind of rehabilitation and re-strengthening my back, it was then deciphering whether or not, the pain was from the injury or whether it was from, it's just, gym pains. So it took me a long time then to kind of figure that out. It was a struggle. It really was, to get back on my feet.
I mean, that's a similar conversation I have quite a lot. And it's either, a lot of people, especially the demographic I tend to work with, get to crisis point before they take action, which is something I'm trying to sort of help people proactively stop from getting to that point in the first place. But then often that bounce back. And it's really good to hear that, you are an advocate for the benefits of physical activity, whether that's big or small. It's really important to get that moving. And something I thought of when you were talking then is, about, like you said, that sort of balance. And our body, albeit a very complex machine, is regulated by hormones, and they are impacted by so many external factors. And we ultimately have control over how they're influenced through our actions, and I can't understate enough the benefits from physical activity, especially for men, to move their body, because that in itself regulates the hormones, and you will just be in a happier space in your body and your mind if you go and do something with your body.
It's like a pressure cooker, isn't it? It's, if you don't have that outlet, it becomes toxic internally, and then that's when ailments start happening, or you'll eventually get a stroke or a heart disease or cancers and stuff like that. It all can kind of manifest in these horrible ways. And it's so important. But also, I think what's really important as well is, which is something that I suppose is an ongoing thing for everyone, because it's not easy, much easier said than done, but it's, yourself is your self-worth, and your self kind of preservation and maintenance of you is the most important thing. Because if you're out of kill, then everything around you, all of your support for your family, your friends, the work, the career, everything just goes because you wouldn't be in a position to do that. So, you know, when I'm kind of really busy, you know, the first thing that comes into my head is, oh, well, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time. And then I have to then consciously kind of unwind that thought process to go, well, hold on a minute. This is probably the time I need to go. And so, yeah, it's something that is, I suppose, everybody I speak to that's in the same kind of boat is, you know, and also if you're on the road, I'm on the road a lot, traveling and going from site to site. You know, I could be on the road for, you know, anywhere between 3 to 5 hours a day. So that kind of idle sitting around is really not good. But then also the services that you go along the way where, you know, 90% of them is like, you know, fast food. And then you kind of go, well, okay, if I don't plan this well enough, all I'm going to end up is living off of burgers. And it's like, that's really not an okay thing to do. So yeah, I think looking at my life and looking at how my routine, we can then kind of break down, okay, well, what can I do in this situation to make it the best? It's not going to be perfect. You've got to give it, and that's another thing, you've got to give yourself a bit of leeway, because I think I beat myself up too much when I first came out of kind of that ill health. Was like, oh, it's not good enough. Oh my God, you know, I'm going to starve rather than going and get, you know, a burger. And it's like, then all of a sudden you start feeling depleted and almost beaten by your own kind of ambition. And it's like, look, it's okay. You know, give yourself some leeway as long as you keep yourself in check and you're regularly checking in on yourself and going, look, how am I doing today? How am I doing this week? Do I need to make any changes? I think that's what really, you know, counts, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's actually one of the exercises that I perform with my regular clients. So every week when we have a catch up, we'll do the usual catch up, but then at the end, we'll look ahead at the week ahead in their diary and figure out, are there any big days? Are there any tricky spots? Where are you doing your travels? You know, what's going to be a tripping point? Plan for it, get organized, have that conversation again, like you said, reinforcing the point that you're not going to be perfect all the way through. There's going to be some bumps, but build a bit of a contingency plan, you know, a just in case kind of plan, and be ready almost so that you can take those on with in the back of your mind, knowing that if one day just goes completely off piste, it's okay. You know, don't just throw the towel in and ruin the rest of the week. Back on track and back to plan, you know, the next time, the next opportunity.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it as well. It's like, don't let one mistake in a day ruin the whole day. You know, because that's another thing as well. It's so easy to say, oh, I messed up on my food for lunch. Okay, well, I'm not going to go to the gym or do whatever I was planning on later today. And then you allow that one choice to cascade into multiple different bad choices, then it becomes so much worse than it needs to be.
Yeah, you get on a slippery slope then, don't you? And I like to, so I kind of work on 4 premises with my clients. So nutrition, being, you know, everything that you fuel your body and feed your body, movement, which includes exercise, but just general movement, sleep and recovery, and then your mindset, your attitude and your organization. And I like to kind of look at it like they're the 4 legs of a table. So if you disregard one for a day, your table's still going to stand up and you're going to be all right. If 2 or more are disregarded, then it's all going to slide, basically. So I think you need to be deliberately working a little bit on all of those at any given time, and then you're just going to keep yourself on that nice base level.
But also if you've got things like, you know, if there's something that's going to disbalance you and really take you to, you know, maybe like the edge of kind of where you want to be, and I don't know, you've got a big project deadline or whatever it may be, and you know that you're going to be consciously putting yourself in a negative kind of health situation, prepare for that, and then go, right, make sure before you're not going into it depleted already, and then make sure afterwards you're planning kind of what are you going to do to then kind of say sorry to yourself kind of actually replenish that, replenish that.
Rather than punishing as well, you know, because a lot of people will think that they've gone too far off the rails and then punish themselves even further. So I think, and like you said earlier, it's that self-care element. You need to try and bring that in and actually look at yourself first. Like you said, so that you're giving the best of yourself to everything else then.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, that also means, you know, it's difficult for people that care about the people they're around, which, I'd like to think a lot of people do, is saying no as well. Because if somebody is then asking for help or asking for your time, being comfortable enough to be able to say, I can't do that right now. It's not saying I'm not interested, I don't want to support you, but it's then saying, my cup is almost empty, so I need to be able to focus on that before I can then focus on someone else. And I feel like I need this recording to then just replay every day to me. I feel like
you come up with some really good aspirational stuff here, so you definitely need to keep this and have a little review.
I need to just live by these words every day of my life. I'll be fine. Yeah. That's the thing, though. It's easier said than done, isn't it? And I think you rope up when, before you know it, you're 4 weeks along and you go, oh, wow, I really messed up this month. Let's review that. And I think the faster pace it's becoming as well, the harder it is, because, I've spent so long crafting and honing my craft. And then, now is people are starting to listen, and I'm starting to get all these really awesome opportunities come up. And then it's like I did Grand Design Live in Birmingham, for example, and it was a showcase of this new Elemental Cube product that I had, which is great. But at the time, I just started on new medication for I've got a migraine attack syndrome now, which is basically from past mistakes of burnout and the stroke that I had, in the sense that it replicates a stroke, but there's no long-term issues. So all of a sudden we bam, it's like a thunderclap headache, and then all the symptoms of what you would class as a stroke. So everything. And then it may last an hour, it may last 3 days. You just don't know. So it was the start of that. So I was on this new medication, and it was, luckily I'm not on it now, but it was really bizarre, and kind of my information recall went. It was almost like I just didn't have any long-term memory or anything. I had to go and, do this Grand Design Live event. Luckily it went really well, but it was, it's that battle between kind of going, well, these are new opportunities that are coming up. You need to take them and run with them, but also all this stuff in the background that you're kind of going, I need to sort that. How am I going to keep this momentum going, but also, deal with the stuff that can't be ignored,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's why it is important to kind of have that moment, quite often, ideally weekly, maybe even daily, to just sort of look ahead and go, right, what's the plan today? What have I got in? What do I know is going to be challenging? And have a bit of a plan and a bit of a thought process around it, because otherwise you just get lost in the craziness, don't you, of everything that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the thing as well, which I've got suckered into especially at the beginning of my career, when when I first started my business and everything kind of just started going crazy and everything was great, was I suppose trying or worrying you were not completely satisfying every single client or business to business opportunity, and you just drain all of your energy into trying to satisfy everybody else, and then you kind of ignore the fact that actually you are needing to look after yourself first, and then you can then look after everybody else. So and you're not going to please everyone all the time. And I think that's something that it took me a long time and was quite scary to actually kind of think, well, yeah, that's true, because otherwise you end up fully burnt out, you can't recover from it, then you're no good to anyone. So I think that was a big lesson, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a big important lesson, isn't it? And that's the thing. I think these conversations are really useful, because if somebody who's on a similar path is a few years behind, and they can hear this information now and sort of take action and be proactive,
absolutely,
they potentially get themselves in a better position.
I think the big thing is just trust what your body is telling you. And I think those types of things where I don't do it anywhere near enough, I need to kind of plan to do it. But kind of meditation is such a fantastic way of doing that, because you don't have to have the classical meditation if you don't feel comfortable with it, but basically just clearing your mind, having no interruptions to that, and actually then just it allows that you to analyze yourself and to be able to then say, right, without all of this distraction of what I should be, what I perceive is how I need to act, etc. None of that. It's like, how am I? what's going on inside me. And, even if that's 10 minutes a day, just kind of quiet time. It's almost like doing a vehicle MOT, just a safety check on yourself every day, just to make sure that there's nothing creeping up that you may have missed because of your life so hectic. And I think that's so important to do.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Really important, because our life is so full. You've got your business, you've got your family, you've got your friends, you've got your social, you've got your sporting endeavors, you've got all these things going on.
Just finishing my PhD as well. So
that's okay. So even that, that's huge. Then if you add in, rest time, relaxation, you might watch a series with your partner, you might occasionally scroll on social media, maybe that turns into too long. There's all these inputs, and we're like on all the time. So I think taking that, that 10 minutes, whether it's meditation, whether it's just a walk in nature with no distraction, whatever it is, I think it's that opportunity for your mind to kind of declutter, rewire. You might get some thoughts straight, and you just come back feeling better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's that change of scenery as well. I think, what's good as well is to, routine is great, but also routine can make you feel like you're just in a loop. So I think consciously every once in a while breaking that, whether it's like simple stuff like go a different way to work, break up your normal, if you're going to a canteen for lunch, I don't know, go for a walk, or I don't know, just it doesn't have to be massive things, but it can be enough to then give your brain that refreshment that you need. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really good advice. So I like to ask the people that I get on, have you got a sort of set of daily non-negotiables when it comes to managing your energy and your health that you sort of always try and adhere to?
No.
Okay.
But
that's not bad. You don't have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It would be a really, really great thing to have, but no, I don't. I look at kind of what I'm doing in my day. I do try, and by kind of 5, 6 o'clock, kind of say, okay, what's not done is not done. And then however crazy that may be, or however much that may put me behind, and then I go, right, let's go home and let's try and switch that off and actually then spend time with my family, in the evening. I'm not perfect at it, not even close to perfect at it, but I am trying to hone that skill in. And just, I suppose as well, if I'm out and I'm doing, I don't know, going for a walk or whatever it may be, I'm now kind of saying, okay, well, I'm going to leave my phone in the car because it's a distraction. Unfortunately, I have a work and personal phone together rather than separate. But then you're always tempted to go. And I haven't realized until recently, actually, kind of how drawn in and connected I always am to my work emails, to projects, even when I'm out with the family. And it's kind of, then you kind of think it's almost like a drug. It's almost an addiction you're not realizing you're addicted to. So I think then, taking that and putting your phone, just leaving it and going, it's not a big deal, I think that recently has been a big thing for me, because I hadn't realized quite how, I suppose, disconnected I have become, and that's again, it's so easy to be able to just be wrapped up in this stuff and think you're doing the right thing, and then actually it's like, well, no, I'm probably not,
Yeah, no, I love that. We've got our daughter is 11, so we're having lots of conversations around being at present with the people that you're in the space with. So a lot of her friends have got phones. We've resisted until now. We haven't given her a phone. So she's obviously feeling left out because all her friends have now got a phone and they've got a WhatsApp group and all that. But we're sort of saying to her, look, it's more important to be present in the room with the people that you're with than it is for everyone to be sat in the room all looking at a device talking to someone who's not there.
Absolutely.
Just blows my mind. So we're really caught in this weird little, not battle, but this strange impasse at the moment where she sort of feels like she's missing out, and we're like, well, you're not really, because you're here with us. You're with us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm exactly in this, me and my wife are in the same boat, in the sense of, we've given our son a phone because he's we're trusting him with very small independence now. So it might be kind of walking from the school down the hill to the car, for example.
Yeah.
But there are kind of moments where he's unoccupied or not with us. So it's kind of going, well, at least you have a phone, so we can kind of get hold of you, and you can get hold of us if need be. So we've banned kind of a lot of the stuff on it, restricted everything, shut down. He can't go on like WhatsApp and things. He can play some games on it, but it's we're kind of tracking everything. So that's kind of where we are with him at the minute. But it is difficult because obviously moving forward, the day of technology and AI and all of this stuff, you gotta grow up with it now to actually even be in with a chance to actually have that kind of any kind of career in the future, in my opinion. So I think it's that difficulty of kind of going, well, okay, well, how do we protect them from the stuff that's on these devices, but also how can we give them enough to then be able to learn, so that they can kind of keep on top of those things. So so it's an ongoing battle as a parent.
It's a modern day problem, isn't it, for us parents?
It is
that balance right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if you suss it out, you make sure you tell me.
And yourself. Yeah, I'm still working that one out.
Well, I'm conscious of time because we've gone whizzing on through 40 minutes. So it's been a really interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it. I think we've come up with some fantastic tips as well that people could take away from this conversation as well. So if people want to get in touch with you, or is there anything special you're working on at the moment? Have you got any events coming up or anything you want to kind of share with people that are still watching?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of ways. I mean, the Jason Ratcliffe.co.uk is very much my well-being advocacy, building performance side of things. So if you're looking to build something new, renovate, and you want proof in the pudding of what you're buying is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, or you want investigating into your kind of internal air quality and environment, that's the place to go. Atlantic Edge Surveyors or Atlantic Edge Property Group is my RICS firm, my Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors firm. So for that sort of stuff. But I mean, even just having a chat, asking for an opinion on something, I try and make it as I suppose, as accessible as possible. And that's why kind of my Heal Your Home podcast is also available on kind of all the main channels as well. And that's, I've got guests on there. I talk about all sorts of stuff regarding the home and how it affects your health. So there's pretty much a whole array of ways that hopefully there's some information that is useful to everyone out there.
Yeah, awesome. So I highly recommend that you get in touch with Jason to talk about those topics. And I dare say we'll have further conversations ourselves as well, because I'm still intrigued to kind of make more waves and make more noise in the student accommodation sector in terms of how the building supports the students and the residents' well-being as well. So hopefully we can kind of link up and do a few bits of work there as well in the future.
Fantastic.
And just for me, so at the moment I'm pushing hard on the Bristol Dads section. So we've got a private members only gym on Aztec West Estate in Bristol, so right where the M5 and the M4 meet. And I run dads only strength and fitness sessions there on Sunday mornings and Wednesday mornings, nice and early. And I also offer personal training there as well. And I'm hopefully going to be looking to launch a new sort of peer support network group just for dads in and around Bristol, where we have opportunity to just get together, connect with other dads. No sort of fixed agenda, no talking stick or talking ball or scores out of 10, just getting together and doing something simple and having a chat basically for a bit of peer support. So I'm hoping to launch all of that in the next few weeks. So if you're interested, if you're in Bristol, give me a shout, get in touch. You can come along and try a session for free on those Sunday mornings as well. So great community there, a great bunch of guys, and all abilities, all shapes and sizes. It works really, really well. So do give me a shout about that. Cool. So thank you once again, Jason, for your very valuable time. We'll leave you for having me. Crack on with the work.
Absolutely. No, it's been lovely. And this is just such a great thing you're doing. I think it's really nice to kind of speak behind the normal stuff that we all speak about. So it's been awesome. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.